It is my privilege and joy that we can continue our Bible study in the book of Psalms. And we have today the subtitle, Wisdom for Righteous Living. We know that the Psalms were composed by inspired people. They wrote down the experienced story of redemption, especially the story of Christ, that what he had to go through was long time before sung and written by these prophets. Their content is an experience one-to-one with God. They have in themselves all the life situations, and they are strength and hope in times difficult situations. The main theme is the law and redemption. That's why they are central in the service in the church. And they will be central. They will be our song, the song of our experience through time and eternity. Psalm 119 is a psalm for wisdom. If something will ever teach us wisdom, it's in Psalm 119. And because it has that what we need to exist in our spiritual life, in our real life, the law and the testimony. And Psalm 119 was loved by me even from my childhood, because when we finished Sabbath and had Sabbath evening worship, we could ask for a Bible verse for the week to be with us. And I loved those from 100, number 100. But let's read the context from 98. Thou, through thy commandments, hast made me wiser than my enemies, for they are ever with me. So the commandment is always with me. And if I am wiser than the enemy, that's a good thing to be. And then he goes on, I have more understanding. It's another word for wisdom than all my teachers. Oh, that's even greater comparison. Teacher should be wiser than the student. No, he says, I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation. I understand more than the ancients. Yes, I'm young, we were children, so we like this text because it came from our wishes to be more in understanding, more wise than the older people, because I keep thy precepts. So this is what will make us wise. But before we can go to understand more what wisdom is, let us see how do these things come into the human spirit. How do we take that information in? And in my last presentation, I already explained it, but since I always like to not lose the overview, I repeat it once again so that it gets more clearer in our minds. So we all know that God is the author of redemption. In Christ, he crucified the old life of Adam and made available a new life. He resurrected as the second Adam, begotten life from God. And now God offers this to everyone because grace cannot be inherited by a law. That's why it's grace. Only by faith. This new life can become our own, can become my life through faith. So what does every human need to do? He needs to recognize his inner state of self-deception. And that is best by the law. It's the law that drives us to the cross. Because without the law, we would not even see that something is wrong. Without seeing the result of our thoughts in our own body as it makes us sick, we would have no idea that something is wrong with us. So we must see it and give it up, nailing it to the cross, which was symbolized also by the animal that was sacrificed. And then through faith, replace this old life with the new life of Jesus. And then cooperate daily with God until no deception, no error is left in our hearts. That's the overview of the plan of salvation. Now, in order for man to cooperate with God, he needs to know. So he must have a good knowledge of the law of life. He must know God, his character of love and justice. He must know the human himself. And he must know himself. One of the greatest disasters that faces the religious and all the non-religious, but you would expect more from those who confess that they are Christians, that they are wiser. They know more about themselves. But we don't know ourselves. We don't know what matters. We're just blind to ourselves. We have to know our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities. What is it where I'm most vulnerable to be attacked? What my needs are, where I focus on. Not knowing ourselves is not going to work ever. You cannot become wise if you don't know yourself. Then the problem of man, you need to know, where does your problem come from? And we know it comes from birth. And then we have to know the solution that God has created in order for us to be free. So the Psalm writers know the law, they know God, the nature of man, themselves, and the way out of the inner innate problem. We saw this in Psalm 51 last time, where you can only sin against God because he is the lawgiver. There's no discussion when you know that he's the only lawgiver, that only he can judge and execute his judgment. There's no one else that can do it. And then God is justified by his righteous judgment towards the sinner. Why? Because he will be justified for the sinner he saves and for the sinner he condemns to die eternally. In both ways, he will prove that he's just. He's just the one to justify the sinner because he took in and by faith got into the new life that he prepared for him, so he can justify him. Because he had no choice to be others than lost before. So when he got the choice, he was saved, and God is justified by that. And then he's also justified by condemning the sinner, because he rejected the truth. He rejected life. He says, all I could do, I have done. And in that state of self-deception, there's no life possible. There's no life possible. Then a clear knowledge the psalm writers had about the essence of man, so the nature of man. This is why we go once again through it. Man is created out of a body and a spirit. And that interface where they work together is the soul. That's where everything goes out and everything comes back. That's the soul. And now for us, important is the spirit, and that he lives by information. And he needs a source of information. And he can only take that information in through an evaluation process. And so I explain it sometimes, before you enter into a house, there is like a hall where you can put off your clothes or your shoes and then enter the house or the church or whatever you want. So the Spirit has such a hall before he takes the information in, because he must evaluate it first, he must see it first. And then there he evaluates if that information is something good or not good for him. He takes it in if he evaluates it correctly for himself, or if he evaluates it correctly to help him for his needs, then he will take it in. If not, he leaves it out. So that's why he has a balance in himself on which he puts the information that knocks at his door. You can eat from all trees except from one. We have seen God said to Adam and Eve. And now, having the measure, which is the law, you know that that's the truth, because God cannot lie. And then you trust God, you trust the law, that is the truth, that man cannot live without God. And then through faith, the information is put in and then the human is free. His decisions are free and healthy. So Adam could choose from 100 or 1,000 trees, we don't know how many. There was only good choices. But there was one that he should not, because it would destroy him. What determines this process? And that's the most important thing to know. It's the truth about oneself. So when Adam was in the truth, he knew he was a creature of God. Then God was his source of information. Eve was not his source of information. Eve could say whatever she wants. He was listening to God. But when the deception came in, then something changed. The deception now says, I don't need a law because I'm self-sufficient. I evaluate things according to my own logic, my own self. And then trust is binding to the snake and to his wife. And so you can eat also from the forbidden tree because it won't kill you. No, it will make you wise. And then now the source of information has changed and the information itself is opposite to that before. And now he takes that in through faith. And now his spirit is in a prison. He cannot now think freely again. And by this, when a negative information comes, he will destroy his body and make himself sick. So, understanding how these things work in general, I think is very important for us, so that we know from where comes what. Because if we don't have a clear understanding of ourselves and the functions, how will we conduct our life? How will we become wise? So David knew. He says, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. And we saw that this is the inheritance that we have. This is our problem that deceives us. It's the gentleman that is in this forum and decides how he looks to the information and takes it in or leaves it out. So there are two needs at the entrance of the Spirit. The one is the law, structure, function, and the needs, which is a self-explanatory information, and the Spirit cannot change it. I cannot change where the buttons of this iPad is, as we cannot change where the buttons of our lives are. They're all set. It's absolute. So that we need in order to trust on. Without this information, we cannot function. And we also need the other information. Words, gestures, pictures, actions. This we must need first to interpret, or I say unlock. I need to unlock them, understand them. What did he mean by looking like this? Or what did he mean by smiling? What did he mean by saying, I don't know. So, you see, why did I act like this? All that needs to be unlocked. I have to view it correctly. That is how we were made. That's how God made us to work. Now, having the wrong man, so to say, the wrong informer at the entrance, we cannot understand how things work. But we can understand the unchangeable thing. We can grasp that, but does not need any interpretation in order to be able to recognize the correct source of information. Because if I don't understand, an information comes to me, but from whom does it come from? So, every information comes either from God or from the devil. I mean, either from the truth or from the lie. And since God is the author of the truth, and the devil the author of the lie, then we better have that discernment. But you cannot have that discernment when that is unchanged. It's only possible for a certain level in order to see the deception and get rid of it. And here God helps us to disease through other things. We can observe that something in us is wrong. I'll give an example of a Christian example. I recently heard a message about Adam and how God made his marriage. So the Bible verse says, God says, it is not good that man should be alone. And now this gentleman explained it and said, yes, like God made us in order to be someone, to have someone to talk to, or to have someone beside him. So man was created perfect, but still he had a missing. And so he needed a companion. And that's why God made him a companion. Now this is judgment from here. Well, yes, you read the Word of God, but you interpret it with this eye. And then you are totally wrong, because you didn't take in consideration the law, the structure, the function, the needs. What gives purpose in life? The relationship, or that for what you do with the relationship? So God made everything to work for a purpose. And now Adam, working, sees that the animals have partners to work with. And of course, to multiply, it's a cooperation between the partners. He sees that and he says, this would be nice if I could have someone to work with. And God made it so that when we work together in a team, it's much more fulfillment than when you just work alone. But still fulfillment when you work alone. So God, in order to make men to be aware that it would be good to have someone to work with, He showed him that picture. So he desired not to have a partner for himself, so that he has someone to talk to, because he saw the animals talking together. No, he saw them, how they worked together. And he said, I would like to have this too. And so God made him a companion, a helper for the work he gave him to do, not for himself. You see, in this eye, you are the center. The relationship is central. But in the truth, orientation after this, you would say the purpose is the center. Relationship is just the means by which the purpose is fulfilled. We come together not because of each other, but because of the work it was given to us. That's how the law functions. But if you don't know that the law is selfless, everything will be interpreted according to myself. And that is the disaster of Christianity. It's a disaster that they read this book, but they have no understanding. There is no wisdom. Their life is not a life of, how can I say, above the lives of the other people. Because they don't know. They don't know the essentials of life. And so, you don't need to be much confused, except to confuse a means with the purpose. And then everything is confusion. And there's no wisdom, not understanding and discerning one from the other. So we need to have a basis for our evaluation so that we can recognize the source of information, if it's God or humans, if it's from God or from the devil. only then I can trust and then take by faith the information in the right way in. Because the information is there. But unlocking it in the wrong way, it will do with me exactly that, what I believe. And in my life, it will be seen if it is wisdom or not. See, I just spoke recently with a patient who had studied the history of religions. And so when I gave him the solution about taking the new life, he was not so happy. He said, I enjoyed your talk until that point. I said, how do you know what is truth? And it's so nice to have that clarity. I said to him, your body says the truth. He cannot lie. What you put into him, the way you think, that's how he works. And you put the wrong in, he breaks. You put the right thought in, he lives. So prove the truth on your own life. And that's so beautiful. This, no one can change. They can misinterpret this, but only because they remain in deception. But if this makes clear and their body shows them, then they might take in the words and interpret them correctly. And it will unlock, it will give to the Spirit the power he needs. So you don't need to have big arguments. I'm so glad that the disease is my argument. You can test it, I told him, on your own body. And then you don't have a false thing. Because the way your body was made to function will always function like it was made. And what destroys him will always destroy him. And what keeps him well will always keep him well. So let's go to Psalm 119 and see how we can learn wisdom from it. Now, this psalm should be the study for a whole 3-month period, which would be a beautiful idea to have it as a lecture, just one psalm. It will give us food for each day, and at least we would come to an end and understand things that we would never understand if we would not came up and studied profoundly in depth. So we have no time to study it in depth. That's why we just put a few verses here to understand the principle, and then you can read it at your home and apply it for each Bible verse, how to put it into practice. So here we read from verse 1, Blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of the Lord. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies and that seek him with the whole heart. Beautiful, is it? And then he says, Wherewith shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereunto according to thy word. With my whole heart have I sought thee, O let me not wander from thy commandments. Thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. Blessed art thou, O Lord, teach me thy statutes. Now, if you go through the whole psalm, you will find very often where the psalm writer, which is David, says, Lord, teach me. So a spirit needs to be taught. Wisdom is not something that you just have. You learn it. And I believe even when God gave Solomon this quality that he asked for wisdom, he taught him. It might not have been just something that happened overnight. Because wisdom is a learned thing. Something you understand in order to apply it in your life. So here we have the law. It comes from God, and we must trust the law, and then we trust God, because it's His law, His information. And then we have His testimony or His testimonies. That is the word that we have to introduce by faith, and we live from it. It determines our action. It determines our walk with God. That's how it does it. And then you read through the whole psalm, you will find spaces in which the psalm writer speaks about he was humbled, humiliated, humbled. Why? Because he had to see the deception of his heart. You see, this is so proud in us that we will never humble ourselves. We cannot. So the situations, the effects of this terrible thing brings us to the state where we think about. And then when we see that it destroys us, it makes us our life miserable, then we can go and put it on the cross and exchange it with the new life. It's the only way of salvation. It's not much more. So here, there is no wisdom. Here, there's wisdom and righteousness. We can never separate righteousness and wisdom, because who is righteous is wise. Who is wise is righteous. And wisdom is the highest attainment we can reach unto. Being able to conduct our lives beautifully, to think ahead, to be in control of our thoughts, then we are in control of our actions and our words. That is wisdom. And my friend James, from whom I learned much, he puts it very beautifully in his 3rd chapter from verse 13. Who is wise? Who is a wise man endued with knowledge among you? So wisdom and knowledge come together. Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. You can never be meek without being wise. And you cannot be wise without being meek. But if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, it's not even an external action, just an internal one. But if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. So, very clear. And when you read before, it's just the error or the truth. It's not much. There's nothing more. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. So, what's your choice? What do you want to be? You can never lie. What you do proves if you're wise or if you're foolish. And for Solomon, there are only two kinds of people, wise and foolish. Truth or the lie. So the way we come out in conflicts, in difficulties, shows if we are the children of God, who has His wisdom in meekness, in peace, in gentleness, in easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits. I like that. That's something that it suits my spirit, my need. And I will show it in my life if I have the new life of God. If I trust His law and live from His word. If not, I will show the fruits that come from here. And if we are envying and in strife, if we are combating each other, if we are getting angry on others, we might know we are not wise. The wisdom of God is still missing in our lives because self-control from the inside out, it only works, will prove us in the extreme situations that we are wise people. And there is nothing higher to be reached than wisdom. Because wisdom is the result of a meek and lowly spirit. Understanding who you are is the result of the truth that you have in yourself, about yourself. So, what do you want to be? We might all want to be wise. And that's good because that's our need. But there is only one way to get it. And that's to daily getting to understand the deception. Give it up and replace it with the truth. And by this, we grow each day. Until very soon, when Jesus comes and the crises go around, we will prove that we are Christ's children. Because His wisdom, His love and peace and gentleness will come out in the midst of strife and conflicts around us. This is what I want, and I hope you want it too. Amen.